The salvage ship drifted through the graveyard of broken metal with the tired patience of a machine that had seen too many questionable life choices. Inside the cockpit, the human pilot leaned back in his chair, staring at the cracked sensor display while sipping something that technically qualified as coffee. The ship beeped. He frowned. That better not be another piece of junk pretending to be treasure, he muttered. The scanner beeped again, this time with more enthusiasm. He leaned forward. Oh, that's suspicious. The display showed the remains of a massive structure buried in drifting debris, something older than the rusted transport ships and shattered cargo modules surrounding it. The structure looked smooth, almost elegant, like the skeleton of a ship designed by someone who had never heard of budget cuts. Well, he sighed, if it explodes, at least it'll be interesting. The salvage ship carefully pushed through floating wreckage until the airlock lined up with a cracked opening in the ancient hull. The pilot pulled on his suit and opened the door. Cold silence greeted him. Inside, the structure was dark, quiet, and far too intact for something drifting near a dying star. His helmet lights swept across curved walls covered in faint geometric patterns. Great, he said to nobody. Mysterious alien architecture. Nothing bad has ever come from that. He moved deeper into the chamber, boots tapping lightly against metal older than any colony in the sector. Then his scanner flickered. A life sign. He stopped. That can't be right. The signal pulsed weakly from a nearby chamber sealed by fractured plating. He pried the metal open with a tool that had previously been used for less heroic tasks. The door slid aside. Inside floated a figure, a woman, not human. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the dim light like distant starlight caught under glass. Long strands of pale violet hair drifted slowly around her face. Thin lines of soft light traced along her arms and collarbone like living constellations. For a moment the pilot simply stared. Well, he said quietly, that's new. She was unconscious, her body suspended in the chamber's failing containment field. Frost clung to parts of the structure, and the life support indicators blinked weakly. The pilot looked around. All right, he muttered, let's review the situation. He pointed at the alien woman. You are clearly part of something ancient, mysterious, and probably extremely dangerous. He tapped his chest. And I am a salvage pilot whose medical experience consists of putting tape on engine leaks. The chamber flickered again. The containment field weakened. The alien woman drifted slightly lower. He exhaled. Oh, fine. I hate my survival instincts. A few minutes later, he was dragging her carefully through the airlock and into the ship's tiny medical bay, which was mostly designed to treat burns, broken fingers, and questionable food poisoning. He laid her on the medical table. The scanner blinked, confused for several seconds before displaying a series of symbols the ship clearly did not understand. Helpful, he said. He cleaned the injuries as best he could. The wounds along her arms slowly sealed with faint glowing lines that moved beneath her skin like liquid light. He leaned closer. Either that's impressive biology, he murmured, or I just accidentally adopted an alien superweapon. Her eyes opened. They were deep shifting colors like small galaxies turning slowly in the dark. For several seconds neither of them moved. The pilot raised a hand slowly. Hello, he said. She did not speak. She simply watched him. After a long pause he nodded thoughtfully. Okay, he said. This is already the strangest Tuesday I've had this month. She sat up slowly. The medical scanner immediately began making confused noises again. The pilot stepped back. Before we continue, he said carefully, I would like to clarify that rescuing mysterious aliens was not on my schedule today. She tilted her head slightly, still silent. Then with calm determination, she swung her legs off the table and stood beside him. He blinked. Wait. She walked past him and calmly stepped into the hallway leading toward the cockpit. He followed quickly. Hold on, he said. You might want to consider the possibility that this is not your ship. She stopped near the cockpit door. Then she simply stood there, waiting. The pilot stared at her, then at the cockpit, then back at her. "You're not leaving, are you?" he asked. She looked at him quietly. The answer was obvious. The pilot sighed and rubbed his face. "Fantastic," he muttered. "First alien I meet in deep space, and she decides to move in." The ship left the wreckage field slowly, engines humming with the steady confidence of machinery that had survived years of questionable maintenance. Inside the cockpit, the pilot adjusted the navigation route while trying very hard not to stare at the alien woman standing quietly beside the main console. She had not moved for several minutes, not blinking much either. He cleared his throat. "You know," he said carefully, "most passengers usually sit down." No reaction. He glanced sideways at her. She was studying the blinking controls as if the ship were a puzzle someone had handed her. "Well," he continued, "that's fine. Standing is also acceptable passenger behavior." Still nothing. He leaned back in the pilot chair and sighed. "I'm going to ask a few questions. You don't have to answer them. I'm mostly doing this for my own emotional stability." She slowly turned her glowing eyes toward him. "Question 1," he said. "Do you understand me?" A small pause. Then she nodded. He blinked. "Great," he said. "That already puts you ahead of most cargo brokers I deal with." He tapped the console. "Question 2. Are you secretly a dangerous alien war machine?" Silence. "Question 3, he added quickly. "Are you planning to take over my ship?" She tilted her head slightly. Then she walked forward and gently touched one of the cracked control panels. The ship lights flickered. The console suddenly rebooted. Every system screen came alive at once. The pilot stared at the display. The navigation computer, which had been broken for almost 6 years, suddenly opened a perfectly functioning star map. He slowly turned toward her. "You did that." She looked at the screen quietly. He pointed at the console. "That system hasn't worked since a pirate accidentally shot it with a plasma cannon." The alien woman placed her hand lightly against the metal again. The engine diagnostic screen corrected itself. The cargo manifest reorganized. Even the ship's coffee machine beeped happily from the back of the cabin. The pilot leaned back slowly. "I'm beginning to suspect," he said, "that you might be very expensive." She stepped away from the console and began walking around the cockpit, examining the interior with quiet curiosity. She touched the navigation screen. The ship adjusted its flight path slightly. He quickly grabbed the controls. "Let's not do that without permission," he said nervously. She watched the stars outside the forward window. The red glow of the dying star filled the horizon. For a long moment she seemed completely absorbed in it. Then she quietly moved closer to the glass. The pilot followed her gaze. "You like stars?" he asked. She said nothing, but something changed in her expression. The pilot leaned his elbow against the console. "You know," he said, "I used to think space would feel bigger than this." She turned her glowing eyes toward him. "Turns out," he continued, "most of it is just empty rock and terrible gas station food." At that exact moment, the ship's radar alarm suddenly screamed. The cockpit filled with flashing red lights. The pilot jumped. "Oh, come on." He slammed the scanner display open. 3 new signals appeared on the edge of the system. Large ships. Military signatures. He leaned closer to the screen. "That is extremely not good." The alien woman stepped beside him again. Her eyes studied the scanner. The pilot began typing quickly. "They're scanning debris fields," he said, "which means someone noticed your ancient spaceship back there." The radar alarm beeped again. One of the ships changed course, directly toward them. The pilot stared at the new trajectory. Then he slowly looked at the alien woman. "I have a theory," he said carefully. She watched him. "My theory is that wherever you came from," he pointed at the scanner, "those people want you back." The approaching ships accelerated. The radar system marked them as corporate security vessels, fast ones. The pilot leaned back in his chair and groaned. "Fantastic." He rubbed his eyes. "I rescue one mysterious alien woman and immediately attract a private military fleet." The alien woman stood silently beside him, completely calm. He glanced at her. "You seem very relaxed for someone who might start a war." She said nothing. Outside the cockpit window, the stars slowly shifted as the ship's engines began to warm. The pilot grabbed the controls. "Well," he muttered, "I hope you enjoy flying." He pushed the throttle forward, "because we are definitely leaving." The engines roared louder than usual, which the pilot considered both encouraging and slightly concerning. Encouraging because the ship was accelerating. Concerning because that sound normally meant something important was vibrating harder than it should. Behind them, the scanner displayed three corporate patrol ships gaining distance with very professional determination. The pilot leaned forward over the controls. "All right," he said calmly, "small situation update." The alien woman stood beside the navigation console, watching the stars stretch across the forward window. "Three heavily armed corporate ships are currently chasing us," he continued. She looked at the scanner screen. He tapped it with one finger. "Those people are not coming over to congratulate me on my rescue efforts." The radar beeped again. Distance, closing. He exhaled slowly. "You wouldn't happen to have a secret escape plan, would you?" She said nothing. He nodded to himself. "Good talk." The patrol ships accelerated. The scanner identified weapon systems warming up. The pilot leaned back in the seat. "Okay," he said. "Now it's becoming rude." He pushed the throttle forward. The salvage ship shot forward into the scattered asteroid belt ahead. Chunks of rock the size of buildings drifted slowly through the black void, rotating lazily like enormous cosmic obstacles. The pilot guided the ship between them. "Well," he muttered, "if they want us, they're going to have to work for it." The scanner beeped again. One of the patrol ships fired a warning pulse. A blue flash streaked past the cockpit window and smashed into a distant asteroid. The pilot flinched. "Very rude," he repeated. The alien woman calmly watched the moving asteroids. Her glowing eyes followed the drifting rocks as if calculating something far beyond the ship's computers. The pilot noticed. "Please tell me you're about to do something helpful," he said. She stepped closer to the console. Outside the cockpit window, enormous fragments of ancient metal suddenly became visible between the asteroids. At first the pilot thought they were debris from old wrecks. Then the shapes moved. Large structures slowly emerged from the drifting rocks, perfect geometric forms, smooth surfaces. Massive circular frameworks embedded inside the asteroid belt like forgotten machines sleeping inside stone. The pilot stared. That was not there before. The patrol ship slowed behind them, scanners lighting up the field. The alien woman raised her hand slowly. The cockpit lights dimmed for a moment. Across the asteroid belt, one of the ancient structures suddenly ignited with soft blue light. The pilot nearly drove the ship directly into a rock. Whoa! Another structure awakened. Then another. Huge rings of silent technology began glowing across the field like a chain of artificial stars. The patrol ship's scanners flickered wildly. One of their engines sputtered. The pilot gripped the controls. "Okay," he said slowly, "I'm officially concerned." The alien woman lowered her hand. The structures continued pulsing with calm, rhythmic light. The patrol ship struggled to maintain formation. Navigation systems were clearly failing. The pilot glanced at the alien woman. "You did that." She looked at him quietly. For the first time since he found her, she spoke. "Protection." Her voice carried a strange harmonic tone, like several quiet echoes speaking together. The pilot blinked. "Oh good," he said. "You talk." He pointed out the window. "Also, you apparently wake up ancient space monuments." The structures emitted another wave of soft light. The patrol ship's scanners went completely dark. One of them drifted sideways into a cluster of asteroids. The pilot gently guided his ship through the glowing field. "Well," he said carefully, "that was extremely impressive." The alien woman stepped closer to the window, watching the silent machines awaken around them. The pilot glanced between her and the glowing structures. "I'm starting to suspect," he said slowly, "that rescuing you might have been a very big decision." She turned her luminous eyes toward him. For a moment the cockpit was quiet except for the hum of the engines. Then the pilot nodded thoughtfully. "Next question," he said. He pointed behind them toward the disabled patrol ships. "How many more people are going to start chasing us?" The alien woman looked at the glowing structures across the asteroid belt. Then she answered calmly, "Many." The pilot leaned back in his chair. He stared at the ceiling for a moment. Then he sighed. "Fantastic." The asteroid field slowly faded behind the ship, its silent glowing structures shrinking into distant points of light. Inside the cockpit, the pilot leaned back in his chair with the exhausted posture of someone who had accidentally survived something far larger than his daily job description. For several minutes neither of them spoke. The radar screen remained quiet. No patrol ships, no weapons locks, just stars. The pilot glanced sideways at the alien woman standing near the window. She was watching the starfield again, calm as if none of the chaos from the last hour had happened. He rubbed his eyes. "Well," he said finally, "that escalated quickly." She turned toward him. The soft light beneath her silver skin pulsed faintly, almost like a slow heartbeat. The pilot tapped the scanner console. "So let me confirm something," he continued. "You can activate ancient machines hidden across asteroid belts." She nodded once. He leaned back further. "And those machines just disabled 3 corporate warships." Another quiet nod. He exhaled. "Right." He looked up at the ceiling of the cockpit for a long moment. "You understand that before today my biggest concern was whether my cargo containers would explode during re-entry." The alien woman stepped closer. For a moment she simply studied him, her glowing eyes reflecting the cockpit lights. Then she gently placed her hand against the navigation console. The ship responded immediately. The broken long-range star map suddenly expanded across the main display. Hundreds of hidden routes and ancient nodes appeared across the galaxy like a web of forgotten pathways. The pilot slowly sat up. "Okay, that's definitely new." Lines of light connected distant systems, forming a vast network of dormant structures scattered across space. He stared at the display. "That's not just an asteroid machine," he said quietly. She spoke again, her voice calm and layered with that strange harmonic tone. "Network." The pilot pointed at the map. "All of this." She nodded. The realization settled over him slowly. The structures in the asteroid field. The ships chasing them. The way every system had awakened the moment she touched the console. He looked back at her. "You're the key," he said. She did not deny it. The pilot leaned forward, resting both hands on the console. "You know," he muttered, "that explains a lot of things that were previously very confusing." Outside the cockpit window, the dying red star glowed quietly behind them. For a long time, he watched the ancient star map flicker across the screen. A week ago, he had been just another salvage pilot drifting between forgotten colonies. Now half the galaxy would probably be searching for the woman standing 2 meters away from him. He sighed. "Well," he said, "I suppose my quiet life is officially over." The alien woman tilted her head slightly. "Choice," she said softly. He glanced at her. "You mean I get one?" She touched the star map again. Several of the glowing routes shifted toward distant, unexplored regions. Safe routes, hidden passages, places where even large fleets would struggle to follow. The pilot studied the map. Then he looked at her again. "You trust me to decide where we go?" It was not a question. She simply stood beside him, waiting. He sat there for a moment, thinking. Then he smiled faintly. "You know," he said, "most people meet someone interesting at a bar." He pushed the throttle forward. The engines rumbled to life again. "I had to rescue a mysterious alien woman from an ancient spaceship." The ship slowly turned toward one of the glowing hidden routes on the map. The alien woman returned to the window, watching the stars stretch ahead of them. The pilot settled back into the chair, hands steady on the controls. Somewhere behind them, powerful fleets would eventually start searching. Governments, corporations, entire civilizations. But for the moment, the stars were quiet. The ship slipped into the hidden route, disappearing into the deeper dark between